The question Chesterton asks is, how is it possible that when we talk about an orthodox thought, how is it possible to think about innovation? Keep in mind, uh, the general understanding of orthodox, the orthodox faith, for example, is the preservation of faith, right? So the idea is when the heresies started appearing, well, the Orthodox were the ones faithful to the original principle, right? Okay, but then again, we get to the contradiction. Well, if an Orthodox will always defend the the purity of the original faith, the only thing an Orthodox has to do is to preserve, and no change would happen, right? But then we have this very strange sentence by Chesterton, right? These men became more orthodox when they became more rational or natural. He's talking, of course, about rational, about Thomas Aquinas, and natural, Saint Francis of Assisi. The problem is, according to Chesterton, those two things, you know, the rationality of Thomas Aquinas and the the way, the natural way of Saint Francis, they were like quote unquote revolutions in Christianism, and so innovations, right? So innovations. But these men became more rational. Sorry, they became more orthodox because they became more rational or natural. In other words, let's try to let's say savor the question. In other words, there was a certain way of acting that was not rational enough, let's put it this way. And Thomas Aquinas appeared and he introduced this great rationality in Christianism. And he changed the way people thought before. And this is being orthodox. Uh, People were not so natural before Saint Francis of Assisi, and then Saint Francis introduced this innovation, and he was being more orthodox. Where is the solution? The solution is that we are not talking about in a development like an invention, like discovering plastic and glass and I don't know, other materials for a computer, right? When the Christian theology, let's put it this way, or when the Christian truths they were given, they were given by revelation. And if they were given by revelation, they were given complete. So again, it seems to be, there seems to be a contradiction here, right? Well, if it is complete, how is it possible we're talking about innovation? Because not everything that was given was developed in the sense of, and this is a very important word here, unfolding. All right? Unfolding. I have to make it physical, because I think it will stick to your memory, right? So the idea is, when the original theology and the church fathers presented the Christian faith and thought, they were given like this, right? Now, look, I'm going to change a lot the way this little piece of paper looks to you, but I'm not going to change the paper at all, right? So I would just start unfolding the paper, right? It's still the same paper, but you could never imagine, for example, the size. You could never imagine that there are some things written here, you know? Well, this is the thing about becoming more orthodox, right? By bringing innovation. Another very interesting image is the image of seed, right? So the seed has in it a big tree, but we cannot see that tree yet. That tree has to develop from the seed, right? Now tell me if it makes sense if I read this part to you. This is a point there is here very much to the point that these men became more orthodox when they became more rational or natural. Only by being thus orthodox could they be thus rational or and natural. Just because they were so faithful to the original sin, just be sin, original seed. All right, we cannot make that confusion. Just because they were so faithful to the original seed, just because they were so faithful to the original paper that was given to them, that they were able to be so rational and natural. Why? Because their rationality and their naturality were based on the original foundation of Christianism, the original doctrine of Christianism, right? In other words, what may really be called a liberal theology was unfolded from within, from out of the original mysteries of Catholicism. The original mysterious Catholicism is the seed.